Today, I'm going to discuss environmental threats. So, the seven biggest environmental threats or problem. One is climate change. Second is species extinction and biodiversity loss. Number three is air and water pollution. Four is water crisis. Number five, natural resources drain. Number six, deforestation. And number seven is soil degradation. What is climate change? It is the increasing and the frequency and intensity of natural events. It is the extreme events that could disrupt food production and cause famine. Number two, species extinction and biodiversity loss. Biodiversity loss due to species extinction. There is extensive agriculture and unsustainable fishing. So you should also consider here the wildlife poaching, especially the elephants or the rhinoceros. So the habitat degradation and destruction, acid rains, and climate change are threatening thousands of species. So the elephants are actually being hunted because of their elephant tusk or the ivory. Number three, air and water pollution. Air pollution, 90% of the world population lives in areas with polluted air, which causes 11.6% of global recorded deaths. Water pollution. Plastic pollution is so great that microplastics is found in 83% of the tap water in the world. Number four, water crisis. All the continents are affected by the water shortage. Only 2.5% out of 70 is fresh water that people, plants, and animals can use to survive. Number five, natural resources drain. Population growth might seem like obvious threat to the environment. Bigger threat of consumption that is far more complex and directly linked to the unique system of supply and demand. Number six is deforestation. In the year 2016, 29.7 million hectares of forests were cut down. Also, 30% of the land remaining are not safe either. This leads to loss of biomass, plants, and habitats of animals. Results of deforestation is drivers for climate change as tree that normally absorbs carbon dioxide. Deforestation also disrupts the natural balance of ecological system. Number seven, soil degradation. It results due to Soil erosion can happen due to wind or water when, when topsoil is removed. Soil compaction happens due to overgrazing and destruction of soil structures. Agricultural chemicals happens due to heavy tillage. So causes of environmental problems and global warming and the greenhouse effect. Global warming. What is global warming? Increasing average air temperatures near the surface of the earth. That's why here we experience this heat island effect. Changes in climates of the earth or long-term weather patterns that varies from place to place, and global warming also gradually increase in the overall temperature of the earth's atmosphere. Global warming causes burning of uh, fossil fuels. Global warming also causes deforestation and tree clearing, and so as the agricultural and farming practices. So here is actually the global warming damages. So here we have changes in animal migration and life cycle. As you can see here, that there are birds actually that will migrate. So from there on, they experience drought and wildfires. This is due to the very intense heat that actually it is actually coming from the radiation of the sun. So the effect here is because of the heat that is actually produced by the sun. It is also it is also one factor that actually aggravates these circumstances. Then less snow and ice cover. So gradually this goes through the river, and here the thawing of permafrost will eventually lead to increase in the rising of the sea levels that eventually will cause flood to those low lying regions which are actually found on the lowland areas. And then there's changes in the plant life cycle. So it warms the ocean. So here, even the ice are actually melted. So there's rising sea levels. It also damages the corals. So the effect, because there is a humidity, naturally, when heat will eventually warm up the sea areas, there's already precipitation, or there are strong typhoons and winds that will eventually lead to these buildings. So higher temperatures and more heat waves are actually experienced. Then the changing rain and snow patterns is actually being already experienced by some other countries. Now, what is greenhouse effect? Or let us abbreviate it as GHE. So greenhouse effect is the natural process that warms the Earth's surface. Greenhouse effect, when the sun's energy reaches the Earth's atmosphere, some of it's reflected back into space, and the rest is absorbed and re-radiated by the greenhouse gases. The Earth's surface warms up during the day and cools down at night, realizing the heat in the form of infrared radiation, or known as IR, out of the atmosphere and into the space. So the greenhouse gases, gas that has the property of absorbing infrared radiation, need heat energy, so is emitted from Earth's surface and re-radiating it back to the Earth's surface. Then eventually this includes also the water vapor. So carbon dioxide is also being emitted, methane, nitrous oxide, and the depletion of our ozone layer, and some artificial chemicals that are harmful to the ozone, which is the chlorofluorocarbons. Four major greenhouse gases: the carbon dioxide, or known as CO2, once it's emitted into the atmosphere, still 40% remains after 100 years. Methane, the composition of methane is CH4, so 16% is actually generated by the human greenhouse gas emission. Next is the nitrous oxide. It has a chemical composition as N2O. 6% human-caused greenhouse gas emission is being emitted worldwide. And the fluorinated gases, or known as the HFCs and the PFCs and the SF6 and NF3. So it is actually emitted from manufacturing and industrial processes, such as the fluorinated gases that are made by man. So greenhouse causes, these are the intensive burning of fossil fuels, massive deforestation, the increase in population. So eventually, when there's increase in population, there is an effect that we deforest our limited lowlands, and so was farming. Some of these lands are actually being converted into industrial use, so therefore even industrial waste and landfills are also common causes why we have greenhouse effect. How greenhouse effects work. Now, step 1, take note that the solar radiation reaching the Earth's atmosphere, some of this is reflected back into space. Number 2, step 2 is the rest of the sun's energy is absorbed by the land and the oceans, hitting the Earth. And step 3, heat is radiates from Earth towards space. Step 4, some of this heat is trapped by greenhouse gases and into the atmosphere, keeping the Earth warm enough to sustain life. Number 5, human activities such as burning fossil fuel, agriculture, and land clearing are increasing the amount of greenhouse gas released into the atmosphere. And number 6, this is trapping extra heat and causing the Earth's temperature to rise. Environmental problems, causes, land disturbance and destruction, poaching and overfishing, agriculture, invasive species, pollution, poverty, the use of fossil fuels for energy, lack of regulations, enforcement, and resources, human behavior, and overconsumption of resources. This ends the presentation.